Hey guys, Tim Albrick here. And before we jump in, I have to tell you how excited I am about this month's giveaway. If you're a P4 student getting closer to graduation, figuring out how to pass the NAPLEX and MPJE so that you can become a licensed pharmacist is at the forefront of your mind. We know that studying for these exams can be stressful and overwhelming, but don't worry, we've got you covered. We've teamed up with Brandon Dyson of TLDR to put together a pharmacy graduate survival kit giveaway, a $584 package for 5 lucky winners that will each win several NAPLEX and MPJE resources, a salary and benefit negotiation guide, and copies of the book Indispensable, First Time Pharmacist and Seven Figure Pharmacist. You can enter today for your chance to win by going to yourfinancialpharmacist.com/giveaway. If you aren't a P4 student, please consider passing this along to your colleagues so that they can get in on this month's giveaway. All right, time to roll with this week's episode of the Your Financial Pharmacist podcast.
For 2019, if you're single and you make an income, a modified adjusted gross income of $122,000, or if you're married filing jointly and you're making an income of $193,000, then you can't contribute directly to a Roth. So how you can do that is by doing a Backdoor Roth IRA, or it's also known as a Roth conversion.
You're listening to the Your Financial Pharmacist podcast, a show all about inspiring you, the pharmacy professional, on your path toward financial freedom. Hi, I'm Tim Baker, and on today's episode, I speak with Christina Slavonik, the newest member of the YFP family. Christina is also a certified financial planner, works with me at YFP, and really has been an outstanding addition in helping clients with their financial plans. Along with those duties at YFP, Christina has also helped Tim Church recently on one of our newest blog posts, Why Most Pharmacists Should Do a Backdoor Roth IRA. It can be a little bit of a technical topic, but we break down how to go about that conversion in this episode. Now, quick disclaimer, this is not investment advice or tax advice. Everyone's situation is going to be different, so make sure you consult your advisor and or your CPA. Now, let's jump into the episode. What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 96 of the Your Financial Pharmacist podcast. I am so excited to welcome back Christina Slavonik, our newest member to the YFP family. I know, Christina, we heard a little bit from you at APHA Seattle, so welcome back to the podcast.
Yes, thanks so much, Tim. I'm glad to be back.
So I guess, Christina, just to put you on the spot here, you've been working with us for, the last couple of months.
Yeah.
How has it been at YFP, and what's different about us?
Sure. Yeah, it's been so refreshing. Just really a breath of fresh air. Just working with
oh shucks,
younger people. And we all have the same kind of, not really, may not have the same backgrounds, but at least we have the same things that we're all working through. And especially when you're able to narrow down your clientele to one niche, it really helps you focus on what they're really needing, what they're really wanting, and then being able to, share your own life stories as you go through that path together.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where, in my past, life, I would work for firms that, was kind of a jack of all trades, kind of master of none type of thing. And, that's not really our game. We really want to focus in on, the big issues that are facing pharmacists out there, and really provide good, service and solutions to really tackle those issues. So today we're going to talk about Roth conversions. Like I mentioned, it could be a little bit of a technical subject, but one of the things that probably we should mention first, as we kind of get into our list of steps here, is way back when in episode 73, how to determine priority investing. We kind of talk about what Tim Church has deemed Baker's bucket. So typically when I sit down with clients, I say, hey, client, typically how we like clients, pharmacists to really fill their retirement buckets, you should always start with your employer match. So, if your employer match is 3%, 5%, 7%, that's free money. And 9 times out of 10, that should be what we are trying to get at least to the match. But from there, depending on the 401k or the 403b, what that plan looks like. Not everyone's 401k, not everyone's 403b is going to be equal. So there are some really great 401ks and 403bs out there. There are some that are, kind of not so great. So it might make sense to go into, the IRA world or the HSA world and really max out that bucket next. So typically, for the IRAs for 2019, you can put in aggregate between the Roth IRA and the traditional IRA, $6,000 per year. So that's a roughly $500 per month. In the HSA world, the health savings account, which we've talked about time and time again, it's the only account out there that has the triple tax benefit. So it basically goes in pre-tax, it grows tax-free, and then it comes out tax-free if it's used for qualified medical expenses. You typically, for a single individual, it's $3,500 per year that you can do, or if you're a family, $7,000 per year. So once we max those out, then it might make sense to go back into the employer plan, the 401k, the 403b, and get to that $19,000 that you can put in. This is not counting your employer contribution that you can put in every year into that 401k. So, Christina, now that we've kind of have, Baker's buckets aside, and we're diligently putting in, a contribution into the IRA, what happens, what happens next with regard to this whole conversion, and why would I convert, I guess, in to begin with?
Sure. Well, in looking at the typical pharmacist salary, which I believe is around, latest stats was around 124, 125,000. You already know that you cannot contribute directly to a traditional IRA. Well, you can, but you can't deduct it. So that's the caveat with that. So where the Roth IRA comes into play is most of the times you won't be able to contribute directly to the Roth because of your income limits. So I know for 2019, if you're single and you make an income, a modified adjusted gross income of $122,000, or if you're married filing jointly and you're making an income of $193,000, then you can't contribute directly to a Roth. So how you can do that is by doing a backdoor Roth IRA, or it's also known as a Roth conversion. And what you will need to do is open up a traditional IRA. And this is assuming you don't already have a traditional IRA open. And we'll get into the reason why, what will happen if you do currently have a traditional IRA. But first things first, you open the traditional IRA. You put say you're going to max out your contribution for the year. You put your contribution in there first of $6,000. And then you can make what's called a Roth conversion. And normally your firm, your wealth provider, whoever you have your investments with, they should be able to walk you through what forms are needed. You fill out the form, submit it. You have a Roth IRA open, and then you're able to convert those traditional dollars, non-deductible traditional dollars, into your Roth IRA. And the beauty of that is not only is your money going to be in the Roth, but it's going to be after tax. You're not going to have to pay any taxes for it going in, because you just made that non-deductible contribution. You will have the earnings grow tax-free. And then if there's certain stipulations that once you hit retirement, or you've had the account open for 5 years, you can start to withdraw those contributions and earnings tax-free. So there are many, many other benefits to having the Roth IRA. One, you do not have to make what's called a required minimum distribution. And with a traditional IRA, you have to start pulling out money at the age 70 and a half. You have no choice.
Right.
So, but with the Roth IRA, you avoid that altogether as well.
So just to recap on that, and to back up, anytime that you see Roth, you automatically should think after tax. So whether that's a Roth IRA, a Roth 401k, a Roth 403b, the money that goes into that bucket is going to be after tax. The flip side of that is, the traditional IRA, the traditional 401k, the traditional 403b, those are all funded with pre-tax dollars. So in simple terms, if I have a traditional 401k and I'm putting in, 10%, and I make $100,000, then, basically I'm putting $10,000 into that account, and the government sees as if I'm being taxed on $90,000. So it lowers my income for which I am taxed on. in that same breath, if I'm putting into a Roth, once I'm putting in with after taxes, so I don't go from 100 to 90, I stay at 100. But when the money comes out in retirement, I've already been taxed on it, so I'm not going to be taxed twice. Whereas the traditional, when it comes out, I'll be taxed. So it's important to understand that dynamic. So everyone can contribute to a traditional IRA as long as you have earned income, but not everyone can contribute to a Roth IRA. So if you make a certain amount of money, so if you're single, if you make more than 137,000, married filing jointly, if you make more than 203,000, then the door slams shut for the Roth IRA for you. So what the Roth conversion does is it takes those those non-deductible IRA contributions. So not everyone can contribute to a traditional IRA, but not everyone can get a deduction. So because we don't get a deduction, we want to move essentially those monies from the traditional IRA to the Roth IRA. And for a variety of reasons, Christina, that you mentioned, that's the thing to do. So, Christina, if I am a do-it-yourself investor out there, and I'm looking at kind of my investment game, I don't have anything open outside of the 401k that I have through my employer. Basically, you're saying first steps is to open up the traditional IRA and the Roth IRA concurrently. Is that right?
That is correct. If you can, yes.
Okay. And then if I know that I'm not going to be getting, I'm not going to get that deductible IRA contribution. So I'm single, I make more than 122,000. How should I actually go about, contributing? Should I wait till the end of the year, end of the tax year to contribute? Should I be contributing per month? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
Sure. Well, it really just depends on personal preference. I've seen both sides of the spectrum where a person will save money, like put it aside in just a regular bank savings account, set that aside for their IRA contribution at the end of the year. And right before the tax deadline, they will put it in and do the conversion right away. Others will contribute monthly to that traditional IRA. And, over time, once they get the contribution, to where they can, they max it out for the year at 6,000 for 2019, then they would make the conversion. And the only caveat with contributing directly to the traditional, like on a monthly basis, is if you do have it in any kind of interest-bearing account, or if you do decide to put it in a short-term investment, when you do convert, you are going to be converting those earnings as well, which may have a little bit of a gain or may have a little bit of a loss. So It's just something to consider when you're going about that process.
And I think that's kind of the nuance, is it can be a fairly complicated situation. So that's kind of some of the nuance that a lot of people may not think about, is that, if you contribute $6,000 over the course of the year, but the account has grown, $100, $150 in appreciation, that's something to consider when you're doing your conversion. And most likely, you'll have to pay the tax on that, on the difference. So Christina, when you go to make a non-deductible contribution to your IRA, there's some say that there should be a small waiting period to let the funds settle, or can I actually go and convert that right away? What does that look like? What's best practice with regard to making a conversion?
Sure. The common consensus is just to wait a few months, just to let that contribution settle. There are some people that will do the conversion right away, but just because, you just want it to look like you are making a non-deductible contribution and not immediately converting, it just kind of, put some space between that. It's just kind of a best practice.
Sure. Well, and I think there's some, think that the Roth conversion is something that's illegal, that we shouldn't be doing. That's not the case. This is a perfectly, legal kind of technique to move kind of the non-deductible traditional IRA contributions into the Roth. That is, just part of the, how the tax code is written. So let's fast forward to, it's April 2020. We're hopefully in the process of filing our taxes, which we just recently got through. what are some of the steps that we should do in terms of any forms that we need to file or anything that we need to worry about with regard to filing the taxes? And then secondarily, if we see that maybe we've contributed an excess to the IRA, how do we fix that issue?
Sure. Well, make sure your CPA or whoever is doing your tax return, that they know that the contribution you had originally made into the traditional was a non-deductible contribution. And most likely they will have a Form 8606, which they will need to fill out. And just make sure they're aware of what you were doing. And as a best practice, we try to say if you can do your contributions and your conversions in the same tax year, that helps your CPA or tax preparer out a lot. So he doesn't have to be tracking what happened in 2018 versus what happened in 2019, so to speak. So there's for that one. And if you, for any reason, get a massive pay raise and you had been contributing directly to a Roth, and then you go back and you look and you see, oh my goodness, I'm making, my income is being phased out. I shouldn't be able to contribute directly to a Roth. Well, you're going to have to figure out, there's a calculation, or you can have your tax preparer help you, that you're going to have to remove whatever excess contribution you had put into the Roth IRA. And so again, there's a calculation to go about figuring that out, but just know that there are 3 ways you can remove it. If you happen to catch it before the tax filing deadline, by all means, withdraw it, journal it back over. You can talk to your firm and see how they go about doing that. Some will just, say to recharacterize, which normally doesn't happen until after the tax filing deadline. Or you can apply the contribution to the next year. Just don't make a Roth IRA contribution directly. But just know that if you do decide to leave that excess contribution in the Roth IRA, there is a 6% excise penalty that you will have to pay every year that excess remains in there. And so generally, as a best practice, if it's not a whole lot, I would just say carry it forward to the next year. You may have to pay a small 6% on whatever that excess was, but at least you'll be covered for the coming years, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. So just kind of recap, there's, from basically January to April of, say, 2020, you can still contribute towards your 2019, bucket for the IRA. So if we were to kind of determine that we're at our limit already, you can essentially, contact your custodian, whether that's, Vanguard or Fidelity, whoever, and say, I'd like to apply, that excess contribution forward to, the 2020 bucket. So Christina, in terms of the process, we have determine what your adjusted gross income, which again, that's going to be the number that, really drives the train on a lot of the tax stuff that goes on, and typically you take the gross income and you subtract out, any contributions you make to the retirement plans. And if you have HSA contributions, student loan interest deduction, if you're a resident out there, you probably can still get those. And that gets to that number. And that's going to be the driving force of what you can do from a traditional IRA, a Roth IRA. If it determines that you can only make non-deductible traditional IRA contributions, make those contributions. Typically, you want them to season a little bit. So, wait 30 to 60, days to get those into the account, and then go ahead and, basically fill out the necessary forms to make the Roth conversion. So we're essentially we're moving those non-deductible IRA contributions from the traditional bucket into the Roth bucket, which is the after-tax bucket, because we're going to pay the tax on it anyway. And there's lots of benefit to do that. And, come tax season, working with your CPA, your advisor to fill out Form 8606, just to track all of that. It's best to do kind of it in the same year. So contributions basically marries up with the tax season that you're filing. And if there is, excess contributions to the Roth, we can fix it before the tax filing deadline, or recategorize after the facts. You could also contribute move it forward to the next year, just so we kind of stay, within compliance. So Christina, any other thoughts on the Roth conversion, anything that we missed that probably listeners should know about when they're trying to tackle what sounds at first glance kind of can be a very, simple procedure, but when we peel back the onion a little bit, can be a little bit complex. Any other thoughts?
Yes, just one final thought. When it comes to looking at your traditional IRAs, and this is just assuming you have other traditional IRAs when you are considering doing a Roth conversion, that amount that you convert, you can't just pick that, I want to do this sum of money in this IRA. It takes into account your entire balance, not just the $6,000 contribution for the year. So if, say, you already have a traditional IRA and you have $20,000 in there, well, that for that initial tax year, you may have to move over that full $20,000 because it's going to take into account the conversion piece. Will take into account all the money you have in that one traditional IRA. It's blind. It can't really see that you only want to do $6,000. So that's just one other piece of advice to keep in mind. Most people that do this kind of transaction, they do not have traditional IRAs. And if they do, that's only for this purpose. So that is just one thing that I'd like to point out there, Tim.
Yeah. And another thing to also point out is, I think this particular technique, is going to become more and more valuable. With the new tax code, for a lot of people out there, taxes are going to be lower in the near future. So to kind of do this conversion, get these monies in the right bucket, I think is very valuable. But also remember, when you make the contributions into the IRA, whether it's the traditional or the Roth, that's just half the battle. The next part of it is really selecting the investments that are inside of that. So, we come across, pharmacists that are putting money into an IRA, but they're not actually investing that, whether it's in a mutual fund or an ETF, or a stock or a bond, that type of thing. So understanding that when the money goes in there, we still have to take the necessary steps to get that invested and get that money working. Because at the end of the day, intelligent investing, where you're taking risk in the market and know that the market is going to go up and down, is necessary really to become that 7-figure pharmacist and really get ahead of things like tax and inflation. And these are some of the things that we work with, when we go through the investment module with our clients is, making contributions only half of it. We have to make sure that we're building out a proper, low cost asset allocation that, has exposure across, a variety of sectors in the market, whether it's large cap or small cap or international bond, that type of thing. So Christina, great job today, kind of going through this kind of somewhat complex topic. Like I said, Christina recently helped Tim Church on this blog post that we put out. So if you go to the Your Financial Pharmacist webpage, yourfinancialpharmacist.com, and check out our blog, you'll be able to see a lot of this information. Also, 5 steps that we talk through. If you go to yourfinancialpharmacist.com/096, yourfinancialpharmacist.com/096, you can get the basic steps for the backdoor Roth conversion, kind of the checklist to kind of work your way through this process. And like I said, if you're working with another custodian, a Vanguard, a Fidelity, they'll be able to walk you through this, hopefully to provide the necessary forms and guidance, maybe not guidance, but at least point you in the right direction to go through the logistics of converting that. At YFP Planning, we kind of do this on behalf of clients as part of the investment management that we do. So Christina, thank you so much for coming back on the podcast. Really enjoyed kind of having your voice on here. We're going to have to do it again soon. Yeah, thanks again for coming on.
Thank you so much, Tim. I look forward to doing it again.
Before we wrap up today's episode of the Your Financial Pharmacist podcast, I want to remind you of our giveaway we are doing this month for P4 students in partnership with Brandon Dyson from TLDR. 5 lucky winners will get several NAPLEX and MPJE prep resources, a salary and benefit negotiation guide, and copies of some of our favorite books, Indispensable, First Time Pharmacist, and 7-Figure Pharmacist. You can enter today for your chance to win by going to yourfinancialpharmacist.com/giveaway. Also, if you like what you heard on this week's episode of the podcast, do us a favor and drop a review and a rating in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you listen to your podcast each and every week. Until next time, have a great rest of your week.